Welcome back to Edging. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Bridget.
And today, this is a podcast about Twilight, the feminist novel that I don't think you should read. Immediately after this reread, my mind still swirled dizzily, full of images that I couldn't understand, and some I fought to repress. Nothing seemed clear at first, but as this recording drew closer, a few certainties became evident. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Twilight radicalized me. Second, there was a part of it, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that was deeply problematic. And third, Edward was unconditionally and irrevocably Prayer House.
I'm going to love this episode.
I've been through a lot writing this script. And I'm just going to make you all go through it with me. I think
I'm excited.
It's truth-telling time.
I've not reread this book since I was a child.
I was going to ask you that. I am going to get into it, but I have been, I mean, I don't think like secretly, but I wouldn't say the fact that I'm still pretty into Twilight is like a huge part of my personality. But I have read it. Today, my husband Mason asked me, when was the last time you read Twilight before you reread it for this podcast? And I was like, I don't know, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I haven't read or reread any of them since I was probably 17, and I haven't watched the movies since then either.
That's crazy. They're so good.
I really want to. Like, I keep planning on it, but I also want other people to be there.
Yeah, I get that.
So we'll have to do a night. Because I've been to a Twilight-themed party.
Mm-hmm.
We were both there.
Yeah, it was mine. And I don't know, is that my 29th birthday?
I think so.
So, yeah, I mean, like, I'm into Twilight. Me, I'm like, it's not really a big part of my personality has a 29th Twilight-themed birthday party. So, in order to begin this story, I want to take us back. The year was 2005.
Fuck.
And in 2005, we were 11.
Mm-hmm.
George W. Bush was sworn in for his second term. YouTube launched. And Hurricane Katrina made landfall. Which is also, of course, when Kanye West was the rightest he's ever been when he said George Bush doesn't care about black people. We'd just left elementary school, and I had spent the entire summer listening to Kelly Clarkson and Gwen Stefani's debut albums on my knockoff Discman.
God, so many things happened that year. I didn't realize that was all at once. Also, that video of Kanye West saying,
Yeah.
George Bush doesn't care about black people. My favorite part of that, besides it being incredibly true, which isn't a favorite part for me, I'm not happy about the fact that, I mean, the older I get and the more I see from Katrina, I saw pictures from it today, and it is one of the most sickening failures in American history.
Yeah.
But the look on Mike Myers' face, because he's the one doing the promo shot with him.
Poor Canadian Mike Myers.
It's because you just see his eyebrows lift a little bit, but he's not disagreeing.
No.
He's just like, fuck, I gotta...
And it's got to be so hard engaging with Kanye West in any way and taking a second to be like, is he right about whatever he just said? Am I going to have to how am I going to have to react to this?
And I feel like that was a very different time of Kanye West, though, too. I think that might have been before he lost his mother.
I don't know. I don't know enough about that part of the timeline, but we didn't know the things we know. Yeah. About anything, and we certainly didn't know the things we know about Kanye West.
It was pre the Beyonce had the greatest album of all time. It was pre that.
Yeah, it was It's so important, I think, for the way that I really want to talk about the zeitgeist that is Twilight, for us to remember what the world was like.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, like you said, so much happened in 2005. It was really hard for my list to be this short.
That's so crazy.
It is. 2005 is the first year that Jib Jab did their year in review. That's that e-card company that did the year in review, and it's like a cutout of George Bush, like singing a song, and it's all about the crazy stuff that happened in 2005. I'll link it. It's been uploaded to YouTube now, but it wasn't initially because YouTube didn't exist. When you try to think about the world as it was when Stephenie Meyer was writing this series or when it was published, I think context is so important to understanding how Twilight happened.
So if this was YouTube launch era, then this was probably also either the Super Bowl before or the Super Bowl around when
Janet Jackson
was given a lot of shit.
Yeah, unfairly.
Yeah.
And Justin Timberlake continued his long career of throwing women under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting you bring that up. I'm not sure.
Because that was one of the first videos on YouTube.
That was one of the first videos I remember seeing on the internet.
Yeah.
I remember standing behind somebody's, like my friend's parents, and they were like, did you hear what happened at the Super Bowl? And it is so nothing now that it's crazy to even think it was such a scandal. But it was. It was such a scandal. I was standing behind an adult for whom I was not their child, and I was watching pixel by pixel as this photo loaded, like on dial-up internet. Because we were all watching. Yeah. It was like you had to see, you had to know, like this moment that was aired on live TV. And I feel like that's such a great example to bring up as we get into why I think it's so important when in time we are.
Yeah.
In 2005, I had just been catcalled for the first time by a grown man. And I feel like it was this experience right as we were starting to enter puberty, where we were still girls, not yet women, but very much feeling the pressure of being women.
Yeah.
And it was literally as we entered middle school that Little Brown and Company published Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. The first book is published in 2005, and Breaking Dawn Part 2 came out in theaters during our freshman year of college. Our entire adolescence was shaped by Twilight.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until I really started thinking about what it would be like, how I would want to frame a presentation on Twilight, how I'd want to tell people. Now that I finally have a platform to tell people why I think they're wrong about Twilight, how would I start that? And a lot of it comes down to the fact that there was no year as we were growing up that there wasn't something new related to Twilight.
Yeah.
That there wasn't something to be excited about, to think about. And as we graduated college, the story was over. And I feel like in a lot of ways that felt right. But I picked the books up again, a few years later, and I have had a lot of fun rereading them. But the older I get, the harder it is to just uncritically have fun reading Twilight. And we're going to talk about all the parts of these books that suck. I'll tell you now, we're going to have at least one episode on every book, if only that.
At least.
Yeah. We're going to talk about codependency, obsession, stalking, appropriation of Native culture, the reinforcing of negative Native stereotypes, and, the entire concept of imprinting, not to mention it happening on a baby.
Yeah.
And I don't have a hard time talking about the things about Twilight that suck. I think it's really easy. I like to be really critical of the things I like. And the only reason I care about how it sucks is because I also still really genuinely love it.
Yeah.
You know, if something isn't good, you don't care about the ways in which it's bad.
Yeah.
Over the past 20 years, I have read this series dozens of times. I mean, at least 12 all the way through. And it's become almost meditative. I know this story so well that when I revisit it and I'm back in that setting, it's not really about what's happening in the books, but it feels like I'm in conversation with my 11-year-old self, you know?
Yeah.
And I was listening to another book podcast. Spoiler alert, I had a really hard time reading the books this time. And that's been true. Like every time I pick them up again, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to read Twilight. Let's do something fun and flirty. And it's never fun and flirty.
Yeah.
There's a part where it just feels like I've gotten the flu. Like I'm emotionally sick. And I need to get through that. And for me, I like need to finish it. Like I have to finish the series. I can't just stop reading it. And I'm not like that with most things because I need to get to the resolution and remind myself that it's going to be okay because it gets really, really rough for a while. And I was listening to a podcast about Twilight while I was taking a break from reading it. And it's another book podcast called Hot and Bothered, which if you guys like this show, you should definitely check it out. They've talked about Twilight a few times, all the good, all the bad. They actually did a series during COVID where they were like, oh, let's have fun and read Twilight during quarantine. They had to stop about, I think usually where I stop, because it stopped feeling fun.
It's definitely going to be different looking back on this as a woman instead of a little girl who's being pushed to be a woman.
Yeah. And it's also, there are going to be so many moments where you're going to feel like it was crazy. Not even that you were being given this book, because I don't really think that part's that crazy, but the sorts of things that you agreed with in the book and the characters you sided with versus how you feel now. And then I also think you're going to be really surprised by the characters that you feel like are actually the heroes and the ones that you want to be rooting for. It's not fucked up in the way you think it is. And I feel like it's not fucked up in the way that the media often spins it. So as I was listening to this podcast, they said this thing that stuck with me. And it actually, I was like, with that mantra in my head, I was like, I can finish this series. Like, I was like, I have everything I need. And it completely reframed the way that I think about it. And it kind of solidified, why do I keep picking up these books? Like, why haven't I grown out of it, you know? And I think the reason I haven't grown out of it is because at the end, Bella gets everything she wants. And that is, I think, probably what I think is the most groundbreaking thing about this series.
Yeah.
This is a novel written by a woman where the heroine gets every single thing she wants and isn't punished for wanting it. And I wish that wasn't radical when I was 11, but it really felt like a big deal.
Yeah.
And I don't think I read it and I was like, I don't usually see books where this happens, but I was just like, I liked it. I just liked that was happening and I felt empowered by it. And when I say that Twilight is a feminist novel, there's like this big, fat, bold asterisk next to that. So stick with me. I believe wholeheartedly that Stephenie Meyer intended to write a feminist novel. Stephenie Meyer identifies as a feminist publicly. She always has. And Bella identifies as a feminist, which you might not remember. I didn't. It comes up in the books. And I think that matters, even though the book falls short of always showing us what we might think of as like a perfect representation of that. I think it matters that Stephenie Meyer probably wanted to write a book that would make girls feel good when they read it.
Yeah. And also a book that had a lot of girls reading. Like when people talk about, I feel like the ill-informed, when they talk about what they don't like about Twilight, they're like, it's just a bad book. Like there's too many adjectives and all of this sort of stuff. But the thing about it is, you know, sometimes adjectives are nice. Sometimes flowery language is nice. But it's not necessarily a bad book. It's targeted towards teenage girls.
And that's the crux of what I want to argue is there's a lot to critique about Twilight.
Oh, yeah.
But I think a lot of the critique, it totally misses the forest for the trees. Because,
yeah, it's like it's a bad book.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's a very problematic book.
Yeah. None of the backlash about Twilight when it came out had anything to do with the complete appropriation of Native culture. You know, not none of it, but I mean the large, like the loud book banning backlash.
Yeah.
When the adults like around me were trying to take this book out of the school library, it wasn't because it's a bad representation of Native culture.
No.
Like, I can tell you that right now. And that's part of why I think reading it is interesting, because it feels like a snapshot of our entire culture. And I think you can look at any really popular piece of media like that. You know, something that caused such a stir. And like you said, that got so many girls reading. It will sound, you know, like we're 31. And it's going to sound like I'm saying that we grew up 100 years before we did, but it was not cool to be a girl who read. Like, it still was a thing that was really cool to encourage girls to do.
And one of the things that I think, too, because I'd been a big reader my entire life, but the thing with Twilight is it was very much like targeted for girls, and it made itself known that it was that.
Yeah.
And I remember the big push after was that it was uncool, that it sucked, all of this. And a lot of it, I feel like, came from it being seen as a feminist thing, or not even feminist, a feminine thing.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that I completely fell for with, you know, my internalized misogyny and stuff like that is I quit listening to pop music. I quit reading Twilight, all of this stuff, because it was dumb and it was shallow and all of these sorts of things that in reality it wasn't. It was just I was trying to be not like other girls because I was like at that point like 14, 15. And that was really pushing. And then it took a lot to break that down and be like, oh, everything I thought was supposed to be good and high tier and like high art.
I can imagine how if Twilight wasn't, like if you weren't of the right age for Twilight to matter to you, whether you liked it or hated it, you had an opinion on it, you might think, why are all of these women who are adults now still saying like these movies are still really funny? Like I love, like we're still playing in the space of Twilight, even if we're not reading it. Like we're quoting it. It's memeable. It's really, really fun to make fun of. But that's still us engaging with it.
Yeah, and it's not making fun of it. I feel like the influx now of what's being talked about with Twilight is girls who are now women who grew up reading it, who are interacting with it, making fun of it, because there are things to make fun of with it, but they're making fun of it in a way that isn't just like, oh, it sucks. No. It's not. It's about the things like, I watched this TikToker, and I'll have to remember their name, but she does a lot of really funny videos. And one of the first things I saw from her is making fun of Jasper.
I knew who you were talking about. She is so funny.
And she's a black woman. And Jasper, for some fucking reason, was a Confederate soldier.
It's like one of those things where if you don't know anything about Twilight, which I don't know how, but if you don't know this about Twilight, you're probably hearing that and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe that's a character. I'm like, that is one of the least problematic things in this book. And that's crazy. It's like you forget to even talk about it, and it's fucking such a weird choice because there are so many other crazy things happening.
Yeah. And that's just one of those, though, that I'm like, Stephenie girl, which all of it is reflective.
I mean, it is, but
hindsight. But it's also like, girl, there was another side to that war.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think what's really interesting about those moments to me, and I'm not going to I don't know Stephenie Meyer, what she was thinking, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of times when you read a book where there's shit like that in it, you're like, this person has an agenda. Like they're trying to say something. They're trying to do something. I don't think Stephenie Meyer wrote that and was like, the South will rise again. I think it was just not a thing that was on her radar because of the time it was.
Yeah. And also I know she's Mormon. Mm-hmm. And I know she's from, compared to where we are, out west. Mm-hmm. Ish. So she was wanting to make Jasper like this Southern meat kind of guy that says yes ma'am and stuff like that. But she, I guess, probably didn't know the history of she could have Jasper could have been from Kentucky. He could have had an accent like ours. Either one of ours, and been a Union soldier.
And I think it is a really good point to bring up that she's not from the South. And it would probably, I could see it being so much easier to just be like, this is, this won't be weird. You're just not thinking about it.
Yeah.
The idea of how this might age or look, again, we're trying to remember what we cared about and what was on our radar. And it took a really long time for most people to be like, it's weird that he's a Confederate soldier.
Yeah.
I don't think it took a very long time for those of us in Kentucky, though. I think that was pretty immediate. I think we were all like, that's weird. Because it is a dog whistle here. And it has been for a really long time.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it, too.
I mean, and it also a lot of the states, not Kentucky, because we were a weird border state is what it was called. Had to take off my shoe real quick.
Hell yeah.
But some states, their state flags still had that imagery on it until very recent years. Mm-hmm. Within the 2020s, I'm pretty sure.
None of this is an excuse for the text, or even an excuse for Stephenie Meyer. She can fight her own battles, and she has some things she needs to address publicly. But I really want to contextualize this book. I want to contextualize this entire series because in order to understand how somebody could be radicalized by a book like Twilight, I think you do need that context. So if Twilight is a feminist novel, and I think it is, I think Twilight is feminist in 2005. If you've never heard of feminism before, which I hadn't.
For 11-year-olds, yeah.
Like we're saying, we grew up in the Bible Belt. And if you're an 11-year-old girl growing up in the Bible Belt where the issue with Twilight is that it's at the center of a moral panic, not only because of the sexual content, but also because the adults around you literally think that the devil is working through Stephenie Meyer to write this satanic book. That is the climate at which reading Twilight is radical. It's literally a thing you're not supposed to read because it's anti-Christian, but it's written by a Mormon lady. And it's basically, it's as Christian as fucking the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
There are so many religious themes. However, it's not it's not propaganda. Like, she didn't write it with the intention of like witnessing to you. And actually, unless there's an example that I'm forgetting, I'm pretty sure Bella's like basically an atheist the whole time. There just are characters who are religious, and there are themes of religion in the story. It's so much more interesting than the backlash against it wants to allow it to be, because I think that America's favorite pastime is shitting on anything that teenage girls like, especially if they're aggressively selling them that thing at the same time. And I think patriarchy resents that teenage girls are tastemakers. They hate how powerful like women and girls loving something is.
Yeah. I laughed because I burped, but I kept my mouth shut, but it still came up. Like the camera still switched to me. But no, that is like, especially young girls are so the tastemakers, because we have been pushed in capitalism as women to like buy a lot of stuff. And that was instilled in us as girls. Like, men don't have to think, I mean, traditionally.
Yeah.
Like with societally and stuff, men don't have to think about like, okay, I need this cream and I need this cream, and then I need to make sure that I have this, and this to put on top of my face for makeup. Like, makeup was also, now it's like a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
But it was very, and I mean, still today, it's like, make her or like go to the pool the first date and shit like that. Like, it was very pushed of this is wrong. I mean, even shaving was made because women weren't buying razors. So now women have to be hairless.
I mean, you don't even have to go down the rabbit hole of like creams and serums. You can stop at makeup. It is really weird, the binary gender divide that we exist within, and it serves the patriarchy and it serves the people in power and like all that stuff. I think that through talking about this, we're going to use a lot of like women and girls, but if you feel like you're a part of this group, if you were socialized as a girl, like this is for all of us. This is for everybody trying to exist in a world that is trying to tell you what you are. And I think something that is really interesting to me that I was thinking about when you were talking about the way that Twilight was being marketed to girls, something that I didn't realize until you said that is that it's not just that Twilight is being marketed to girls. It's the first thing I can remember being marketed only to girls.
Yeah.
There was no attempt that I ever saw or that was successful to pretend that boys would like this.
Yeah.
And that's pretty weird for a book this big. Up to that point, there, like every story you heard, and I don't know if this is true and fuck this bitch, but I remember hearing a story growing up that J.K. Rowling used her initials because she didn't want boys to be deterred from reading her book, which sounds like her. But even if that's not true, or if that was a publisher or whatever, the idea of that, the idea that like, we're not that far removed from, you know, we're in the middle of talking about Frankenstein, from women publishing their books under pen names.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be outed as women, because then men won't read it. Nobody fucking cared if men read Twilight.
Let me look up the author's name really quick so I don't fuck this up. S.E. Hinton.
Yes.
So the author of The Outsiders was a teenage girl.
Yeah.
But she wrote, and we were also talking about this in Frankenstein, she wrote about boys. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Frankenstein is a novel about males, because at that point in the world, like, how are you going to sell?
And also, I feel like it runs deeper than that. We talked about this when we were talking about Frankenstein, like, it's very compelling because gender is a social construct. It's compelling in a patriarchy to write a story where you can insert yourself as a man.
Yeah.
Like, it's compelling. There's this sad aspect of like not being able to see a hero being a woman, and maybe that's part of it. Or maybe it really is wanting to create power for yourself. Maybe it's wanting to critique what it feels like to be in a world where there are men. I think a lot of times where there are men at all, where there are men in power, I think a lot of times it's really a lot of subconscious things.
Yeah.
And I think that really plays into Twilight as well. It's not despite its flaws that I think Twilight is feminist. It's because of them. Twilight wasn't the feminist novel we deserved, but I think in some ways, because it's so shitty in all of the ways we're going to talk about, it felt more accessible to us. And I don't think like Stephenie Meyer was like, I'm going to make this shitty so that girls like it. I think that, and we're going to talk about this later, I think that she like has internalized misogyny that came through in the writing that makes it really sad to read now.
Yeah.
And that felt accessible to me when I was 11. When I first read this series, I fucking hated Bella. And I hated Bella for all of the reasons that you're taught to hate women. I was jealous of her, which is what's so crazy to me when people try to critique Twilight and they're like, Bella has no personality. She's two-dimensional. She's just a self-insert. And I'm like, no, she isn't. She's an autistic queen. And I was so fucking jealous of her. And so I hated her. And I hated her for all the reasons she hates herself.
Mm-hmm.
When she is in the text, because the book is also in first person perspective as Bella. So when people are like, this is bad writing, I'm like, I think it's pretty convincing writing as a 17-year-old girl who's like really smart and reads a lot and is flowery and just like living her romantic truth.
You're so fucking dramatic at that age.
I still am in my head for sure. And people critique this book because she doesn't have self-confidence. And I get that. I think a lot of times there's a good faith critique where people are saying, I don't think this is a good book for young girls because of the way Bella talks about herself. I agree. I would not give this book to a middle schooler now. However, when I first read this book and why I feel like it's so interesting to read it now as an adult, and I kind of feel like I'm engaging with that younger version of myself and, I don't know, kind of healing that inner child and all that bullshit, is that because I read Twilight again as a grown-up, I got to fall in love with Bella. I got to love her as a teenage girl who's so like a teenage girl and is exactly like other girls, just like I was, even though I too did not want to be like other girls. And she spends when we meet her, and for the most of the beginning of the book, her entire, like her strongest personality trait is that she needs to make everyone else's life easier. And I don't think there was anything more fucking relatable in the world. Being a teenage girl, being taught to manage the emotions of the people around you, even of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read Twilight as an adult, I was just like, I was so fucking wrong about Bella. This girl slaps. Like, she's so cool. And it helped me see all of these things about the series overall that I had been missing out on, because I fell into the trap too of being like, yeah, I used to like those books, but they probably do suck, and Bella probably sucks, and like being a girl probably sucks, and fuck girl shit. Am I right? Like, it's just, we deserve better. And weirdly, Twilight helped me get that. It helped me understand that I deserve better and that I need to make sure that I'm helping all of the women and girls around me feel like they deserve better. And because it radicalized me, as pathetic as that might be, this is the world we live in, Twilight will always have a special place in my heart. And I still don't think you should read it. I think the gross appropriation and misrepresentation of the Quileute tribe, which I'm probably saying wrong, is pretty inexplicable from the Twilight saga. We're going to talk a lot about this when we get to New Moon, but I want to be really clear before we move forward at all. Stephenie Meyer, who is not Indigenous, is not a member of this tribe, appropriated their name and their culture, and she profited off of it. Like, she really, really profited off of it. And I don't really think she did that maliciously. I think that she did that because she didn't think of why she might not be allowed to. However, like I said, it's been 20 years. Mm-hmm. She's never publicly acknowledged that she did this. She's never apologized for it.
She hasn't?
No, she has not. And the tribe has never been compensated in any way, despite the success of this. So I don't think that compensating the tribe for the use of their name makes it okay. I think it would go a long way towards beginning an apology.
Yeah.
It is really disgusting to think about how integral this story to this story, like the Quiet tribe's legends are, legends that she took and changed, stories from their culture that she fully appropriated. And it gets worse. Like on its own, that's egregious. But as we spend more time with Stephenie Meyer's idea of Indigenous people and culture, it's going to get worse than that. And that's just one of the many problematic elements that we're going to talk about when we talk about this series. And it's one of the reasons that it's really hard to read these books now. And I think it should be. I think for everything Twilight was to me in 2005, now it serves as a cultural touchstone. Like many of the classics that Stephenie Meyer cites as inspiration, the Twilight saga is a product of its time. It doesn't age well. And also, it doesn't age. When we turn the last page, we leave our characters frozen forever as teenagers. We get older, and Bella will always be 18. An eternal sentinel of our imperfect girlhood. So you better hold tight, Spider Monkey, because after these ads, we are finally talking Twilight. So, hi. Buckle up. Here we go. Like I was saying earlier, the series is almost entirely in Bella Swan's first-person point of view. We meet her as she's leaving Phoenix, where Stephenie Meyer, I think, is also from. So thinking about her being more from out west. And there's a siren.
They're coming to get us.
And honestly, I get it. That's Charlie. So when the book opens, Bella is leaving Phoenix and she's leaving her mom and she's getting on a plane to go and spend her last 2 years of high school living with her dad, Charlie, in Forks, Washington. Bella hates Forks. Her mom hated Forks, and that's why she left. I mean, probably also wasn't happy in the marriage. But Bella hates the rain. She hates the cold. She loves Phoenix. She tells us that she loves Phoenix. She loves the sunshine. She loves the dry heat. And this whole opening scene, her mom is like, you don't have to go. You should stay. I don't want you to leave. And Bella's like, no. It's going to be great. I need to spend some time, getting to know Charlie. And she and Charlie know each other. They spend a couple weeks together every year, not in Forks, because Bella hates it. So for his part, Charlie is the local police chief, so, ACAB, and he's delighted that Bella's home. He doesn't really know how to be a full-time dad, but Bella is really used to being self-sufficient, which, again, remember that, it feels important. She immediately is like, oh, he can't cook. I don't know how he survived this long. I'm just going to have to do the grocery shopping and cooking. And I'll give Charlie some points for trying, but it really is kind of like, dude, why don't you know how to feed yourself? And now your kid that she's here. But they figure it out. They start settling in, and Charlie has bought her a car. Bella is so responsible. She literally is used to managing her mom and taking care of her. And she's saved up money. And she's like, okay, I'll get Charlie to help me find a used car because I can't be fucking stuck in this town I hate, but I'm for some reason moving to. And he has just bought her one. And she's like, fuck, what is it? And it is this old refurbished red pickup truck. And she loves it. She immediately loves it. And she doesn't know why. She's like, I have no idea why, but I fucking love this car. It's cute and it's sturdy and it belongs to her. And she doesn't have to spend her savings to buy a car, and it makes her feel like she's free to leave. And that's really nice because she has a really hard time being in Charlie's house. It's clear he hasn't gotten over her mom. Their wedding photo is still up. And it's just like, it's a bummer.
Yeah.
It's a real bummer. But, you know, Bella and her dad are really similar. They're both awkward. They're both quiet. They're both really good at silence and really bad at small talk. So they figure it out, settle in. Bella's not excited to start the new school. She doesn't like attention, but she quickly makes friends because everybody obviously wants to talk to the new girl. And we meet my nemesis, Mike Newton. I fucking hate Mike Newton. Mike Newton to me is the villain of this series. You don't even know who this is.
I don't remember.
Good. He's not memorable. He's so fucking unimportant. Mike Newton is this pathetic little nematode of a boy. And he sucks. He's just some local boy that, you know, is immediately like, oh, the new girl, she's so cute. For the entire series, he will be incapable of taking a hint. He is so fucking pathetic.
I know who this is.
Yeah. He is my personal nemesis. And I think it's because he's so real. Like, he is such a real person that I have known and had to deal with. And he's not important to the plot. He just, like, you know, is there as exposition. But there are so many moments where Bella is like trying to figure out how to navigate him not taking a hint, not taking no for an answer, not listening when she says things, but also trying to be like nice and not hurt his feelings and like not upset him. And it like makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
I fucking hate Mike Newton. Anyway. So at lunch with my nemesis and some other classmates, Bella first sees the Cullens. So we'll do our intros in case you don't know. All 5 of them are seated together in the lunchroom. They're magazine beautiful and incredibly pale. They sit behind trays of untouched food, and they have heavy dark circles under their identical dark eyes. Alice is the smallest one. Her short dark hair and the graceful way she moves makes Bella think of a dancer. Rosalie is strikingly beautiful, like a famous actress, tall, with flowing blonde hair. Even Emmett, who looks like he could fight a fully grown bear, is beautiful and graceful in his own way, with his cherubic face and curly dark hair. Jasper, who for some reason is a Confederate soldier, is leaner. We don't know that yet. Is leaner, but no less imposing, with honey blonde hair. And then there's Edward, the most boyish of them all, with untidy bronze-colored hair. Bella's new friends, a.k.a. one of my favorite heinous characters, Jessica, the biggest bitch in the history of the world and the most realistic teenage girl I've ever seen depicted. I love Jessica. I hope all good things come to her in her life. She's literally just like, oh, those are the Cullens. And Bella's like, you can tell she's jealous. And it's so funny. She's played by Anna Kendrick in the movie, and it is... she should have gotten an Oscar for that. It's so fucking good. So Jessica's like, so they're all foster children of this rich local doctor and his wife. And Bella's like, oh, like, that's interesting. They don't really look alike. And then Jessica's like, they're not like related, obviously, because apparently the doctor and his wife are really young. They're like only in their 30s. And Jasper and Rosalie, as far as Anna Kendrick thinks, are blood related, but scandalously, some of them are together. Alice and Jasper and Rosalie and Emmett are each couples, and they live together, which even Bella is like, that's pretty fucking weird, actually. Yeah. Like, I know this is a small town or whatever, but I have to admit that is crazy that is a thing that's happening. And then Bella finds out that they moved there 2 years ago from Alaska. Bella feels a pang of sympathy because she's like, okay, the Cullens are also outsiders here. And it's weird to be an outsider in a small town. And she's also relieved because she's like, they're way more interesting than I am. So they've been here for 2 years and people are still fucking talking about them. The sympathy is short-lived. When Bella gets to biology class, the only open seat is next to Edward Cullen. And he seems to instantly despise her. He doesn't say a word to her, and he physically recoils when she sits down. This is where I tell you, or I guess I remind you how, all modern romance novels are kind of reminiscent of Pride and Prejudice. This one isn't just reminiscent of Pride and Prejudice. I did not know this until I was researching for this. Stephenie Meyer cites a classic novel as inspiration for every single one of the books in the Twilight saga. And she's just like, yep, Pride and Prejudice, Twilight, hell yeah. So not a coincidence, not definitely fully intentional. And Bella is obviously annoyed that Edward seems to hate her for no reason, but then he stops showing up to school. So she's like, okay. She also is like, that first day she's leaving after he's like run away from her in biology class, and she walks into the office and he's trying to switch to a different class. She's like literally like, fuck me, I guess. And we kind of just like buffer for a few days. And then a week later, Edward is back and he introduces himself like nothing happened. And Bella is like, I don't fucking buy this. I'm not having this. But also, it's like the most interesting conversation in the book so far. It's fascinating because I think the choice to tell this story through Bella's perspective, I think Stephenie Meyer does a really good job because she is pretty much immediately exposed as an unreliable narrator, like we all are. She doesn't tell us why she's moving to Forks. We don't find out until Edward asks her. And he's the only person who ever asks her why. He's just like, oh, you moved here. That's cool. Why did you move to Forks? And she's just like, well, my mom got remarried. And he's like, oh, you don't like your stepdad? And Bella's like, no, I didn't say that. And he's like, okay, why did you move to Forks? And she's like, well, my mom's new husband travels for work. He's a minor league baseball player. And I could tell she was sad when he was gone. So I thought it would be easier if I came and lived here. And Edward, because he does have the benefit of being like 100 years old, is like, but you're unhappy now. And she's like, okay, life's not fair. And he's like, okay, all right, fine. And it's fascinating to me because if you just hear about Twilight in a vacuum, I think you're rightfully ready to be like, Edward is about to be my least favorite character. Mm-hmm. Edward is the number one Team Bella stan. Edward is probably, I think he's like the only character who gives a shit, not like definitely about what Bella wants, but not just what she wants, like what she needs, like what she as a person needs. And it's obviously weird because he's like a, 117, I don't remember, year-old vampire who just looks like a 17-year-old, like falling in love with a 17-year-old girl. But weirdly, Stephenie Meyer pulls it off. And you don't have to believe me. Let me convince you. But she definitely makes me buy that he and Bella are on the same level. And the way in which he is older than her is only a benefit in that he's patient. And he's like, he believes that he understands that she'll die one day. And so he's just basically like, I think that as long as I get to spend time with you, it should be the best time of your life. And the second it isn't, I don't think I should be in your life. And you're kind of like, God, I agree with you on that. I do think that, yeah, if you're going to be around, I guess at least that's true. So they have this conversation. He's the only person to ask her a question the whole time that isn't just like, you're pretty. How'd you get here? It's actually like really interesting. They're kind of sparring back and forth. He says this line, which I love. You put on a good show, but I'd be willing to bet you're suffering more than you let anyone see. And she's just like, whatever. And I'm like, yeah. She notices that Edward's eyes are a different color. And she tries to ask him about it, and he dodges her question. And she's just like, this entire book is Bella being gaslit about something. So Bella's just as confused as we are, and she's annoyed with herself when she realizes that she's really excited to see Edward again. And she's like, fuck, this guy's weird and he's cagey and I don't know what his deal is. And I'm worried about embarrassing myself in front of him, but I'm kind of excited for biology. So she feels like she should be avoiding him. And then she's doubly horrified when she looks outside and she sees that all of the rain from the previous day has frozen into ice. And so Bella isn't like other girls. She's clumsy. And so she's terrified of eating shit in front of everyone. And she doesn't want to embarrass herself in front of Edward again, which she hates. But she's amazed at how easy her drive to school is. She doesn't have any problems on the black ice. And when she parks, she notices that Charlie got up early to put snow chains on her tires. And, you know, I'm having to kind of speed through this as per usual. And since you're not going to read the book, you're just going to have to kind of roll with it. But Bella's not used to being taken care of. Like, her mom's not like a shitty mom, but she's really scatterbrained. And Bella has been definitely made to feel like she needs to be the adult and be the responsible one. And Charlie's got a lot of flaws. We'll get into them later. But Bella is so not used to being taken care of that she is like about to cry looking at the snow chains on her tires. She like can't believe it. Like nobody, it's like heartbreaking to think that nobody has ever, for this 17-year-old kid, done something like that would make her feel like she doesn't have to be in charge all the time. But this is how Charlie shows his love. And so she's just like staring at these snow chains and trying to not cry in the parking lot when she hears the high-pitched screech. And she doesn't even have time to close her eyes before everything changes. But we've got time. So let's pause for a quick word from our sponsors. Okay, we've got a lot of ground to cover. I found myself really struggling to get to the point in this where I was like, I got to tell him about the plot of the book. I was like, at some point I have to tell him what happens in it. So we're going to jump around. From Bella's perspective, this moment where she's standing in the school parking lot is the first time her life is in danger. When a classmate's van hits a patch of black ice and sends him careening towards her. But for Edward, this is the second time he's saved her life. As he moves faster than any human could possibly see, he tries to convince himself that he's doing it to protect his family. That first day in biology, just the scent of her nearly overcame the tolerance to human blood that he's been cultivating for the better part of a century. And he has never experienced bloodlust like this. We find out that, like, it's a thing that, like, some humans smell better to some vampires. And it actually, like, has some purchase in the lore that she builds that maybe when a human smells better, it means they're going to have, like, more cool vampire powers if they're turned. But, like, it's harder to turn them because it's harder to control yourself. And so you just end up killing them. We'll get into that more later. Spoiler, some vampires have special powers. So it's so hard for me to imagine anyone like literally not knowing anything about Twilight. I'm trying my best. So there's so much to cover. So he'd never experienced this before, and it took everything he had to not kill her in that room. He's literally like, I thought about it. I could have killed everyone. Would have been fine. You know, would have sucked, would have had to move. But like, I wanted to suck her blood so fucking bad. But he doesn't. And he leaves. And that's why he's gone for a week after they have this first encounter. He goes up to Alaska, which they really did live there, I guess. And there's another coven like them, aka a coven of vampires that does not suck human blood, that he stays with for a while. And he thinks about just waiting until she graduates. Like, he doesn't have to go back. He can just wait. She can move on. Everyone will be fine. Like, he and his family live separately sometimes, but he just couldn't stay away. And then that first day back, when he finally spoke to her, it wasn't just that intoxicating smell of her blood. It was her. It was the way she moved, the way she talked, the gestures. And he found himself just like wondering what she was up to and like what she's doing and like what her deal is. Also, we're going to find out that he can read minds and he can't read hers. So obviously he's like, what's her story? So as he watched that van careening towards her, he didn't think of the lie he came up with later, which is, well, if she got hit by the car, her blood would have been everywhere. And then like I'd be lapping it up like a dog and everyone would know we're freaks and like whatever. His only thought actually was not her. And we learned this way later. We learned this as Edward and Bella lay in their meadow, finally getting to talk openly about what's happened. At the point that we learned this, Bella's already met Jacob Black on the Quillette Reservation, and he's told her about the Cold Ones. She's already been researching vampires and questioning Edward about how he was able to get to her so fast and why his eyes changed color. And he obviously doesn't want to tell her, partially because we'll learn later it would like break a treaty that the Quillettes and the vampires have, but also because he really wants to leave her alone.
Of fucking course some white people are going to break a treaty that
I swear. And he like, so like most of the part that I'm skipping over is just Bella being like, I don't know why you think I'm fucking stupid. Your eyes have changed color. I didn't see you get to me, but I saw you not be next to me. And I also saw you push a car away from us. So like, I think that, you know, there's something going on with you. And he's like, you hit your head. And I'm like, okay, I know that I'm being an Edward defender and it sounds crazy. He really stops gaslighting her after this point. And I know that shouldn't be a high bar, but wait till you see what the other people in this book do to her. So up to this point, she's also been like cornered by a bunch of shitty men while walking around a nearby town. And she's rescued by Edward. And that's when he's like, I can read minds. And she's like, fuck, you can? And he's like, not yours. And she's like, okay, fine. Which is honestly so real. I was really afraid that anybody around me could read minds as a teenager. I always thought like, I bet you there's one bitch in this room that can read minds. And I am so fucking over them. They better not say shit to me. So he like finds her when she's in trouble being cornered by these guys by reading the minds of like everybody and looking for her face. And then he rescues her and, you know, whatever. And, you know, we just kind of, we get to it. He's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm a vampire or get over it. And she's like, I'm already over it. I'm down. And he's like, actually, don't get over it. Actually, I think it should bother you more that I'm a vampire. Why doesn't it bother you at all? And he's stressed. So that brings us to that famous scene in this beautiful meadow, the scene that Stephenie Meyer cites as the dream that she had that inspired the whole series, where Edward, for not just like the first time in a long time, one of the things that I think is really interesting about Edward is like, Bella's also his first girlfriend. And that's part of, I think, what feels more sweet about this relationship, because usually when you have some kind of like vampire shit going on, you're just like, ugh. But with them, you're just like, oh, like he really has just kind of been 17 for a long time.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of growing up he hasn't done. And he's never been interested in anybody else. And she's never been interested in anybody else.
He has the years, but the frontal lobe is not developing.
I mean, right? Like when I say when we leave these characters, they're always teenagers. They are. Like they're always going to be teenagers in some way. And I find that really sad, but also kind of beautiful. Like I wish they got to grow up. But the thing is, like, I think so do they. Like, Edward isn't a vampire because he was about to grow up and live a good life. He's a vampire because he was about to die, you know? And this is the first time he's ever been able to share everything about himself with someone. And this is the moment where Stephenie Meyer reveals that her vampires sparkle. And this is the thing that people love, right? Like, Twilight was such an influential piece of media that I bet you, if you're listening to this and you don't know anything about it, you know you're supposed to have an opinion on it. And if you weren't Team Edward or you weren't Team Jacob, maybe you were vampires don't sparkle. And you were still buying merch for a thing you didn't even like. You were buying merch about how you didn't like it. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. But here's why I think if you think vampire sparkling is stupid, I think you might be wrong about it. And I think in order to understand that, you have to think about what kind of book this is. The Twilight Saga is a series where Bella gets everything she wants. And Bella loves the sun. And Bella wants to be a vampire. And so in this story, vampires can't die in sunlight because then Bella wouldn't be able to get everything she wants.
It's that meme with like all the numbers and stuff. Like, that's me right now. I've never made that connection. Also, because I read this at like 11, but
well, and like
that makes so much sense for her to be able to get that.
And I think it's so easy to be like, you know, like Twilight's not that deep. And like, I get it. It is though. You know, the things that we love when we're young are that deep. They're foundational. And sometimes when you go back, you're like, this doesn't have everything I thought it did. And I applied a lot to it. And other times, like with Twilight, you go back and you think, wow, this has a lot more than I thought it did. Not all of it's good, but some of it is really good. And that's where my notes end. So we'll have to just kind of chat about the rest because I've been working on this script for like a week. It is so hard to distill everything that I think and feel about Twilight into an episode. Twilight is a lot. A lot happens. There's a lot that you could talk about. I could clearly talk about it for weeks. But yeah, I mean, after this moment where we find out that vampires sparkle, and I know that if you like weren't there for it and it wasn't your thing, it probably sounds really dumb. It's like kind of dumb, but also it's very girly. It's very feminine. It's very fun. It's like, this is still the skin of a killer, Bella. Like, it's still dangerous and it's still, you know, all of these different scary things. But the thing that really blew me away when I reread Twilight as an adult is thinking about the reason this appeals to you as a young girl. Especially, it's really confusing to grow up as a teenage girl. It's really confusing to go through puberty. And it's, for me, a lot of the things that were really confusing about that is that you spend your life just as a kid and then suddenly you become a girl. There is a moment at which, like, I remember, I feel like I became a stranger to my dad. Like, he suddenly didn't know what to do with me. He didn't know how to talk to me. And we had to learn how to talk again because we live in a world where it's so scary to be a teenage girl and it's so othering to be a girl. And the second you start becoming this thing that's a girl, you're expected to like want things and like certain things and like dress a certain way. And you also suddenly start getting told about all of the ways that really bad things are probably going to happen to you and all the stuff you can do to prevent it. You can prevent forest fires. You can not wear that thing that's too revealing. You can sign an abstinence pledge at your school assembly. You can be this like protector of your own virtue that's constantly threatened at every corner. And if in the middle of that, you're also developing an attraction to men, it's really confusing. because it's like that meme where it's like straight women are crazy because they're the only animal that's attracted to their only natural predator.
Yeah.
And Twilight fucking gets that.
Yeah.
When he says, this is the skin of a killer, Bella, and he says, you're my own personal brand of heroin, he says, I'm the worst person for you. And yeah, that's really toxic. So is dating men. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. It feels like you're navigating a world where everybody that you might be interested in sharing your entire self with is also potentially like your murderer.
Yeah.
And it hit. So we're going to go to commercial and then we're going to come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the plot and we'll wrap up our first episode on the Twilight Saga. All right. Oh, just one more. So, hoa, hoa, hoa. It's happened. We have a vampire boyfriend. And it fucking rips, dude. When you're like 15 and you're imagining walking in with not just the hottest guy in school, but like he's completely untouchable. Nobody knows anything about the fact that you've been hanging out and like learning he's a vampire. And then you just roll in together. It's so good. So things get pretty fucking crazy. You're probably thinking, oh, that's the end of the book. It isn't. A lot of other stuff happens. So we have this whole reveal in the meadow. And Bridget, I'm curious. It's been a long time, you said, since you read it. What do you remember from Twilight? If you can think, like, can you remember the first book?
I remember glimpses, but I also don't know if those glimpses are related to the movie / memes.
Oh, the movie
could be a Mandela effect.
The movie's totally fine. I'll correct. Tell me what you think.
So I remember the meadow. I don't know if this is the same time, but it's. How old are you? 17. How long have you been 17? A long time.
Yeah, that's this one.
And he steps like into the light and he's sparkling.
Mm-hmm.
And was that Hang Tight Spider Monkey?
Yeah, so that is like when she goes over to his house for the first time and then he's like, let me show you how fast I can run. Which is honestly some real first boyfriend shit.
Part of it that I remember, like when they meet the family for the first time, like Alice is really excited.
Mm-hmm.
And Rosalie is like, this bitch.
Rosalie, I like felt as I was writing these notes, I kept feeling like I'm just so impatient for everybody to already know everything I know.
Mm-hmm.
Rosalie's arc is great.
Yeah.
You end up falling in love with her, but not in the first book. And she fucking hates Bella at first. So this is the book where Bella walks in and Esme's like, we're making Italiano. And they've like tried to cook for her, even though they don't eat. Because vampires don't eat, which is fine because Bella doesn't really like eating either. So it works out.
Very 2000s of her.
Very 2000s of her. So they're dating. And Edward is like, he reveals some other stuff. He's stalking her and he's also been watching her sleep. And because Bella is, a teenage girl, she's like, I love that.
That's so sweet.
And he's like, yeah, sorry. I just like don't want to be away from you. And she's like, so true. And yeah, like he is doing all of that. And that's true. And I don't have a defense of it. But he doesn't sleep. It's boring, I'm sure.
It explains a lot for me and how I developed to remember that. So
yeah, it's the criticisms of them having like an unhealthy codependent relationship. That's true. The thing that's really interesting about the arc of this book and the arc as we go through is that Edward isn't the villain, and the book isn't really about this relationship that is really unhealthy or like whatever. The presentation of everything in the book is like, this is a relationship that would have no problems if he weren't a vampire and there weren't all of these things happening, like people trying to kill them all the time. So here's the progression of our story. They're dating. Everything is going fine. Except for, I don't think Stephenie Meyer thinks it's a problem that he's watching her sleep. Like, let me be clear with that. I think that she's like, that's the fantasy. That's part of the fantasy, is this guy who's just like so into you. And that's obviously incredibly toxic. The only thing that I will say that makes it different than you might imagine if you haven't read it is that Edward, unlike some other characters we'll encounter later, and my nemesis, Mike Newton, is like, not only can he take no for an answer, he'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
He's desperate for Bella to be like, get out of my life. He's like, he really wants to not be so drawn to her.
Yeah.
And that's compelling, and that makes him interesting as a character. But everything is going pretty fine, and the only problem is that his sister doesn't like Bella until they play baseball. And so the baseball scene, iconic filmic moment.
Let me see here if I can, hold on. No, hold on. Let me try the other leg. Okay. I got my baseball. This is my baseball bat.
If you're not watching the video, you're missing out. So Bridget is showing you some of the iconic form that you'll see in this baseball scene. The conceit of this is that vampires love baseball.
They play baseball. They can only play it during a thunderstorm because they're so good that it sounds like thunder.
Yeah, because they're so like, a thing that's really important to think about is that in this lore, vampires are so rock hard that when they hit each other, it sounds like two boulders smacking together. And so they have to play under the cover of a thunderstorm.
Which happens a lot in Forks.
So it works out.
Yeah.
And this is where we get to why Forks as a setting and how we have to wait so long to get to the point where Bella gets to get everything she wants. Well, it's like, well, we have to be in Forks because that makes the most sense, because even though vampires can go out in the sun without dying, if they do it, they would expose themselves.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the Cullens won't be in school, and it'll just be because it's sunny out. So the very few sunny days. I think Stephenie Meyer probably Googled rainiest place. And so
rainiest place, Native American tribe near rainiest place.
Literally. And she's like, I'll take some of that. And so we are going to get it. Speaking of Native American tribe, we're going to get more into that a lot in the next book. That's our Jacob book. Jacob is introduced here. His dad Billy knows Charlie. They were in the army together.
They're like best friends. Isn't that who he buys the truck off of? Yeah.
Yeah. So Jacob is really good at like fixing up like cars and stuff like that. So he helped his dad fix it up.
Yeah.
And it's a super old truck, but it runs great. Like, we know that. That's canon. And so Bella encounters them through that. And the whole tribe doesn't trust the Cullens. And this is a point of contention between Charlie and Billy, because what will become the foundation for an entire fanfic community is that Charlie is such a Carlisle Cullen stan. Charlie loves the Cullens, specifically Daddy Dr. Cullen. And it makes sense from his perspective. He doesn't know anything that's going on. But this is also true. From his perspective, this rich doctor that could work anywhere moved to this small town and works in the hospital. And he works all the time because he doesn't have to sleep. Like, it actually comes up later that he like really resents that he ever has to leave the hospital because he shouldn't have to. Like, he's like, I wish I could just without arousing suspicion stay. because I don't need to sleep and I don't need to rest like other doctors, and I want to save as many lives as possible. And Carlisle's really interesting because a lot of vampires can't even be near, like if a human starts bleeding, they're like in a frenzy. And Carlisle has just desensitized himself to the point where he can like operate on people. And so Charlie notices that the Quileute tribe is really suspicious of the Cullens. And he's like, this is so ridiculous. Everyone's so prejudiced about the Cullens. He goes on this entire fucking rant about it. And then like, the Quileutes are just the only one who know. They're the only ones that know they're vampires.
That is also the movie Sinners.
Is it?
Award-winning Sinners. I believe it's the Choctaw tribe at the beginning is trying to like warn these white people about vampires, and they're racist, so they're like, go away. Yeah. And then it's pretty early in the movie, but like the two white people are in the Klan. And they let in this other white guy who's like, I need to get away from those Native Americans, even though the Native Americans were like, hey, please don't let this guy in. Like, we are warning you, there's shit going on. And they, of course, let this guy in, and he changes them into vampires.
Jesus Christ.
And I don't think you see the tribe again in the movie. Yeah. Because they were there to be like, ma'am, I'm warning you, please do not let this man into your home. And then it's racism, so they're like,
oh, actually, sometimes it's hard to feel bad for people. It's just tough. You're just like, well, I don't know what to tell you. And unfortunately, there are some real Quileute legends that Stephenie Meyer used and kind of twisted in this. And in the way that she used them, the Quileutes are shapeshifters. And what's interesting from the perspective of the story is that at this point, Jacob doesn't know that. Jacob thinks all of this is legend. He doesn't think it's real. And so he also thinks his dad is kind of crazy. He's like, yeah, all of the elders are really weird about the Cullens. I don't know what the deal is. He's like, I think they think vampires are real. And so that's sort of the setting for that. So baseball happens. And vampires love baseball, so a bunch of other vampires show up. So it's really interesting. The book just like totally shifts. It's like this really sweet, like we're in love, nothing could go wrong, but it is a romance. So here is your second act twist. These other vampires shows up. Like, I'm trying to think of all their names. There's James, he's the tracker. And then there's Laurent, who's traveling with James, and I'm trying to remember the redheaded vampire lady's name. Victoria. So it's James, Laurent, and Victoria. And they come and they're like, we should all play baseball. And then there's this really dramatic way they do it in the movie that's amazing, where I think to make it look like Bella is a vampire, they put a baseball cap on her. Classic. And because vampires love baseball. And they're like, it's fine. She's downwind from them, because the entire concept of this book is that Bella fucking stinks. And so our smelly queen is downwind, and all of the vampires show up, but the wind changes. And they smell her. And then James is like, I'm about to rip this bitch apart, because most vampires just fully kill humans in this universe. Like the Cullens are weird. It's weird that they like hunt deer and other animal and stuff. And so these other vampires are like, James is literally like, why'd you bring a snack? They're all like, she's with us. And it's a whole thing. And then apparently James is a tracker, which means his vampire superpower is that he won't stop until he's caught Bella. I'm going to go ahead and drop some lore for you, because I'll probably forget later, because there's a lot to talk about. James is a tracker, and actually when Alice was a human, he tracked her. And so she's turned later, and she doesn't have any memory of her human life, so she doesn't find that out. We don't find that out until way later in the series. But James, his entire thing and his power is like tracking down people, and he's specifically like, if he finds someone, like Bella doesn't make everyone go buck wild crazy, but she smells pretty good to most vampires. Like, not as good as she smells to Edward, but they're like, she does seem tasty. Like, I get where you're coming from. And they're basically like, Bella, we have to get you away from Forks. And she's like, he's going to kill my dad. What's going on? And all of a sudden, like, they have to move because Bella is about to get murdered. That is our shift in this story. Some things that are going to be important. Alice can see the future. I don't want to get into it right now. So Alice loves Bella. She can see the future. So as they're like trying to run, Alice is like, that's so ravening. And she's like, we got to do this. We have to do that. And all of this stuff is happening. And Rosalie's like, I don't want to help. And everyone's like, shut up. And basically, Edward is like, we have to leave. And Bella is like, I can't just leave. My dad is the police chief. This is going to get fucking weird. She's like, I got this. And fucking the most savage and heartbreaking scene in this entire book happens. Bella, like, takes a deep breath outside of her dad's house, and then she storms in. Before they went to play baseball, she introduced Edward to her dad, and Edward, who loves the Cullens, was like, what do you mean you're dating him? Isn't he too old for you? And she's like, he's 17. And Charlie's like, seems suspicious. He's right. And this is also the moment where Bella comes down wearing what is Apologies. This is also the moment where our audio dropped out. So let me go ahead and pick up where we left off. Bella comes down wearing what is described in the book as my only skirt. Long, khaki colored, still casual. I put on the dark blue blouse he'd once complimented. This is where Edward describes her as utterly indecent. And I'll cut to mine and Bridget's reactions, which we captured on video. Then we talked about one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the whole series. I literally skip it most of the time. This is where Bella storms into the house, pretending to be having a fight with Edward like they're breaking up. Charlie tries to talk to her, but she ignores him and storms up the stairs, and Edward is already there in her room, packing up all her shit. And she knows, like most teenage girls, the inner depths of her father's emotions. Stephenie Meyer has been seeding this moment, this whole book. The pictures of her mom that are still up, the way he's never really seemed to move on. So in order to keep him safe, Bella says to Charlie the same thing her mother said when she left him and she left Forks for good.
I forgot about this.
And she feels so bad, but it's such a good scene and it's so believable. Because you're like, A, teenage girls are so fucking smart, especially emotionally. And B, it from the perspective of what's going on, it's a really smart thing to do because she knows that Charlie, her prerogative, by smart, I mean like to get what she wants, which is like if anybody dies for it to be her, because she has no sense of self-preservation. So she's just like, I can't let my dad get hurt because of me, so I have to hurt him in order to make sure he'll think I'm just going back to visit my mom. So everyone separates. Bella ends up with Alice and Jasper. And there's this like fucking boring ass several scenes where we're just in some hotel room and Jasper is like sitting there, like fucking eyes wide shut and looking creepy as shit and not saying anything. Jasper also has a superpower, and it's kind of cool. It's that he can control the emotions of the people around him, but on the way your body reacts way. He's not affecting your brain, but if you're feeling anxious, he can like chill you out.
Parasympathetic nervous system.
Yeah. So
Confederate soldier.
Yeah. So that's his shit. And Bella, every time she notices he's doing it, she's like, fuck. She's like, I hate this. And she's just like, everything is really stressful. She's like suddenly taken out of her life. She's separated from Edward, which is, the only thing she cares about in the world now and will continue to care about for most of the series. And she gets a call from her mom. And this is how it all breaks down. She gets a call from her mom. And so Alice hands her the phone, but it's actually James. And he says, I have your mother and I need you to get away from them. And he like tells her what to say so that she doesn't sound suspicious. It's all pretty believable. Yeah. And this works specifically for like a lot of really interesting reasons that I'm not going to get into. You buy it. He tells her exactly what to say. And Bella is kind of like, I don't know if I can, to mean like, I don't know if I can get away. And he's like, well, then I don't know if your mom's going to be alive. And so this is where we are going to go into the patron only section of the episode. And I would definitely stick around to hear Bridget's reactions to the end of the book. And we'll wrap things up with Twilight. And then the next time you hear me presenting a book, it will be New Moon. So there's this whole dramatic That's So Raven sequence. A lot happens. It is a book. He's like a fucking sick fuck.
God, some men are so fucking pathetic with how much they want a dick ride.
Men, if you're listening, and I'm sure you're not, snap, like crash, like gooey good, is erotica for middle schoolers, and I did like it. So we are back. Bridget, what do you think about Twilight?
There was a lot I had forgotten.
There's a lot I forgot to talk about.
I'm glad to be hearing it again through you. I don't know if I could go through the reread.
I don't know if anybody should. I think if you, like me, enjoy being really critical and revisiting these things and you're like interested in it, go for it. But I mean, like, obviously I'm not your boss. Read it if you want to read it. But I'm not going to recommend this incredibly traumatic book series to you that is also really, really problematic.
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you the important stuff. And I think we'll have a lot of fun talking about what feels like it is still relevant. Before we go, I have to tell you guys about how I fucked up the voicemail. So I don't know if any of you guys have been trying to leave voicemails. I would love it if you did. But when you called, maybe you got a message that was like, would you please record your name? Instead of our normal message, because I had a weird setting checked that's like, a call screening setting. I fixed it. You can just leave. You don't have to like do anything weird. And we'll immediately, you'll hear our message when you call the number, which is 413 Get Edgy, 413-438-3349. And I'd love to know, are you Team Edward, Team Jacob, or my favorite, Team Bella? And I don't know, what do you think about Twilight? If Twilight was something that mattered to you, I'd love to know. And if Twilight is something that you don't get, or you think it's weird, or you think one of my takes sucks, call me, tell me, let's talk about it. We're going to cover New Moon next, and we're going to have a lot to talk about then, too. Thank you, guys. This has been Edging.